So Ukraine took matters into their own hands and took out the planes that are used for the missile attacks, to which Hassett responds, "I expected we were going to announce the deals last week." Well, you didn't.
Trump golfing during Ukraine's massive strike on Russia isn't the shocking part. What he posted online afterward might be. Stay tuned to see why Biden's robot clone became his latest obsession while the world tackled serious geopolitical crises.
Former President Joe Biden was actually executed in 2020, and a robotic clone has been replacing him.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Sunday morning kicked off suspiciously low-key for Donald Trump, with a familiar scene that's become one of his trademarks. Yet another taxpayer-funded golf trip. This time, he was spotted in Virginia, swinging his clubs at the Trump National Golf Club while the rest of the world grappled with a laundry list of actual problems. It's hard to say whether the former president's swing has improved over the years, but his consistency in choosing golf over governance is unmatched. The trip also reignited chatter about his presidency's long history of golfing expenses, which reportedly cost taxpayers over $144 million during his 4 years in office. Even after leaving the Oval Office, Trump seems determined to keep us all guessing whether his handicap or his leadership abilities is the bigger problem.
Donald Trump is now golfing in Virginia and again behaving in a very deranged fashion, making more unhinged posts.
Spoiler alert, it's not the golf. Yet the golf course wasn't the most bizarre part of Trump's day. That honor goes to his online activity. Between rounds, or maybe while waiting for someone to fish his ball out of a pond, Trump hit up Truth Social, and oh boy, did he deliver. Among his musings was a particularly outlandish post suggesting that President Joe Biden might actually be a robot clone. You heard that right. Trump's conspiracy-laden post sparked laughter, concern, and collective bewilderment across the internet. It's one thing to accuse opponents of policy failures, but accusing them of doubling as robots? That's a new kind of low even for Trump.
Covering Donald Trump saying that former President Biden's actually a robot and was executed in 2020.
The memes practically wrote themselves. One tweet read, "Forget Westworld. Trump thinks we're living in Biden bot world," while another joked, "Terminator 3, Biden's big budget revenge." But for many, Trump's claims weren't just comedic fodder. They were further proof of his increasingly erratic behavior. The media response wasn't forgiving either. Several outlets, from mainstream newsrooms to late-night comedians, highlighted the absurdity, with one prominent commentator summing it up as an impressive return to form for Trump's unfounded nonsense.
With golfers, and he was talking about how some of these other golfers are longer than him.
If Trump was looking to make headlines, mission accomplished, but not for the right reasons. Meanwhile, as Trump teed off and fired off, the world was having a moment, specifically Ukraine. While he clung to these bizarre distractions, Ukraine was executing what analysts called the most significant military strike of the war so far. Across the globe, leaders like Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky worked the phones, coordinated with allies, and monitored war rooms, all to dismantle Russia's strategic bomber fleet in one epic maneuver. And Trump, he was busy avoiding sand traps and trying to convince the internet that Biden's presidency was a sci-fi experiment gone wrong.
Ukraine was making it look easy in their attack on Russia's strategic Air Force fleet.
This contrast is nothing short of staggering. On one hand, we had Zelensky knee-deep in tactical planning and showing what wartime leadership looks like. On the other, Trump appeared disengaged, uninterested, and frankly desperate for attention with his outlandish posts. It's safe to say that nobody in Ukraine or in any room where serious decisions were being made was looking to Trump for guidance. His absence in these moments, both literally and metaphorically, felt striking. The man who once positioned himself as a deal maker on the global stage now seemed like he wasn't even invited to the table or cared enough to pull up a chair.
Realizing how weak Donald Trump is and that they have the support of Europe and the rest of the coalition of the willing.
Critics were quick to point out how Trump's fixation on political fanfare fiction, like the Biden robot nonsense, conveniently deflected from larger questions about his own leadership credibility. It's hard to debate global affairs when your opponent is more focused on impersonating a QAnon message board. Even his supporters had little to say about Ukraine's major victory, or Trump's apparent indifference to it. Instead, the focus shifted back to his diminishing role in today's geopolitical narratives. It's not exactly surprising that world leaders didn't consult him on Ukraine's masterstroke, but it's certainly telling. And that brings us to the crux of Trump's predicament. His penchant for creating needless distractions, whether by making unfounded accusations or treating his weekends like extended vacations, is more than just a personal quirk. It's a glaring reminder of his dwindling relevance. Sure, the guy can score a nice birdie, but when it comes to leading or even contributing to actual global conversations, let's just say his scorecard speaks for itself. While the day might have started on the golf course, it ended with a sobering realization. It's one thing to swing a club, it's another to swing political influence on a global level. As Trump kept himself busy, Ukraine effectively rewrote the rules of modern warfare, devastating Russia's strategic assets with surgical precision. And the difference? Zelensky wasn't arguing on social media about robotic clones. So was Trump's golf game on Sunday good? Maybe. But his leadership game? That's a hard no. While Donald Trump was out on the golf course fine-tuning his swing, Ukraine was making history thousands of miles away. On that same Sunday, Ukraine's military carried out an extraordinary attack that took out 30% of Russia's strategic bomber fleet.
Air Force fleet was destroyed by Ukraine, and these planes were deep inside Russia.
And just in case there's any doubt about how severe the damage was, Ukrainian intelligence claimed the hit cost Russia a whopping $7 billion. For context, that's enough money to fund a lifetime supply of Trump's golf cart rentals, and then some. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky referred to it as the country's longest range operation. He didn't stop there, calling the outcome absolutely brilliant. Even pro-Kremlin sources, usually quick to downplay bad news, admitted the losses were devastating. One Telegram channel flat out stated it is impossible to restore these losses. Military analysts didn't hold back either, comparing this strike to a Pearl Harbor moment for Russia. It's not hard to see why. The global response wasn't just one of awe, it was one of unity. Western allies, already backing Ukraine with weapons and financial aid, were quick to highlight their support for the operation. The message was unmistakable. Russia's isolation on the international stage is only growing wider. Europe and NATO wanted to send a clear signal to Moscow. This isn't just Ukraine's fight, it's the world versus Russia. Yet in the middle of all of this, Trump was busy showing his mastery in one area, perfecting his sand trap strategy.
So Ukraine took matters into their own hands and took out the planes that are used for the missile attacks.
A glaring point in all of this was Trump's complete irrelevance during one of Ukraine's defining moments in the war. Let's rewind to his grandiose claims back when he was president. Remember when he said he could end the Ukraine war in 24 hours? That's right, Trump boasted he had all the answers to one of the most complex geopolitical conflicts of the 21st century. Fast forward, and Ukraine conducted this historic operation without even a courtesy glance in Trump's direction. No 11th hour calls to seek his input, no desperate late night text messages asking for advice, nothing. Why? Because these aren't problems you can deal your way out of on the golf course. Let's not pretend this attack was some simple decision. The operation required months of planning, cutting edge intelligence, and the kind of international cooperation Trump's foreign policies often strained. The glaring contrast: while Zelensky was rallying allies and orchestrating an operation of global importance, Trump was back home accusing Biden of being a robot clone on social media. Think about that. On one hand, Zelensky was playing chess at the highest level. On the other, Trump was playing social media Mad Libs. How much attention was Trump paying to all this while he was out playing 18 holes? Probably about the same amount of attention he pays to fact-checking his online claims. As Ukraine dismantled Russia's military power, America's former president was more likely thinking about golf scores than global security. It's hard to imagine Trump's golf obsession wasn't the butt of a few jokes in Kyiv's war rooms. I mean, wouldn't you laugh if the man who claimed he could fix everything in a day wasn't even aware of what needed fixing? Here's the takeaway. This was a critical, game-changing moment in Ukraine's fight against Russian aggression. It was also a standout moment of leadership by Zelensky, who continues to prove himself as one of the most resilient and innovative leaders on the global stage. Meanwhile, Trump, who once claimed to be an unrivaled decider, was busy proving he's more of a golfer commander-in-chief. Who's taking Trump seriously now? Certainly not the people who just pulled off one of the most brilliant military operations in modern history. As Ukraine reshaped the war's trajectory and sent a shockwave through Moscow, Trump was reshaping sand bunkers. In a single day, Ukraine showed the world exactly what leadership, strategy, and determination can achieve. And Trump, well, let's just say he had a good day for birdies, but a bad day for relevance.
Donald Trump is not focused on anything other than playing golf at the taxpayers' expense, that we, the people's hard-earned money, is going to.
While Trump was deep into his weekend routine of golfing and posting conspiracy theories, his inner circle was left to do what they do best: spin. And boy, did they spin. Let's start with Scott Bessent, a man with a knack for making numbers up faster than a last-minute homework assignment. Bessent confidently declared that the federal deficit was going to be lower this year than it was last year. Sounds great, right? Only one problem. He was flat out wrong. The actual data showed that the deficit was significantly higher.
Talking to you today and not at home watching your show is that I was concerned about the level of debt. So
the facts weren't just off by a few dollars either. It was a glaring discrepancy that left economists scratching their heads and wondering if Bessent had confused the nation's budget with a Monopoly game, even for the Trump team, known for its creative math. Remember the biggest inauguration crowd ever? This was a new low, but Bessent wasn't the only member of Trump's economic squad dodging reality. Kevin Hassett, Trump's head of the National Economic Council, was also working overtime to deflect criticism. Responsible for making sense of the administration's trade negotiations, Hassett found himself fielding questions about the lack of progress on pending deals.
To which Hassett responds, "I expected we were going to announce the deals last week." Well, you didn't.
For an administration that prided itself on being fast movers and art of the deal experts, this sluggish pace was almost painful to watch. It felt less like a calculated negotiation and more like a group project where half the team forgot to show up. While Bessent and Hassett were busy trying to slap band-aids on economic problems, the fallout from their spin campaigns was all too real for ordinary Americans. People facing rising costs, crumbling infrastructure, and job market uncertainties didn't seem all that reassured by empty words. And this disconnect wasn't just noticeable outside the Republican Party, it was starting to create divisions within Trump's own ranks. Senator Rand Paul, never one to shy away from calling out fiscal irresponsibility, made his frustrations crystal clear. In his criticism of Trump's approach to the debt ceiling, Paul warned that tying tax cuts to a $5 trillion debt increase was a dangerous move. He expressed concern that such a move would effectively destroy whatever credibility the GOP had left when it came to financial responsibility. Who's left in Washington that cares about the debt? He asked. And let's be honest, that question wasn't rhetorical. The answer, definitely not Trump. And then there was Trump himself, the man at the center of it all, seemingly unbothered by any of these issues. Instead of addressing the widening debt or responding to actual warnings from financial experts, he was off in his own world, focused on perfecting his golf swing and arguing about robot conspiracies on social media. It's almost impressive how disconnected he appeared to be. National debt skyrocketing? Who cares, as long as the Twitter algorithms are still working in his favor. But let's circle back to Trump's team, because in many ways, their responses summarize the entire Trump-era approach to governance. Bessent's wildly inaccurate claim about the deficit was emblematic of the team's inability, or unwillingness, to confront ugly realities. His equation might as well have come from the same place as Trump's infamous claims about alternative facts. Meanwhile, Hassett's deflection about trade negotiations was just another reminder that the administration's promises often pointed to big ideas with little follow-through. And while the GOP itself started to fracture under the weight of the debt ceiling debates, Trump's role in the chaos was overshadowed by his distractions. For anyone still keeping score, this wasn't just a bad day for Trump's inner circle. It was a train wreck of leadership failures. Think about it. Global tensions were rising with monumental events unfolding in Ukraine. The US was sitting on a budget time bomb, and Trump's team was busy spinning half-truths like they were auditioning for a reality show. Meanwhile, Jamie Dimon, a man who actually understands economics, was practically waving a red flag the size of a football field. And Trump? He spent the day avoiding responsibility faster than a a golfer avoids adding up strokes on the scorecard. Trump's Sunday wasn't just about bad optics. It highlighted a disturbing gap in leadership. While Ukraine was pulling off a historic military strike, Trump was busy golfing and posting online nonsense about Biden being a robot. His disinterest in global crises isn't new. He's been skipping intelligence briefings and downplaying serious threats for years. But this time, the stakes were higher. The world was moving forward with global cooperation, while Trump seemed frozen in irrelevance. If we want leaders who actually lead, maybe it's time to stop electing ones more interested in sand traps than solutions. The world isn't waiting, and neither should America.